there's been somebody who on every video that I have posted in the past couple of months has asked me, where is the Lindsay Nicole video? And I would just like to say, first of all, it's here. Damn. I apologize for the wait. Okay. It had a lot going on. We had a lot to do together. Okay.
Like what?
I'm roping in my husband on this.
She was sleeping. We would cook. She would go to sleep. I would go to sleep. We would watch UFC. Then another funny anime video come out we gotta watch.
Yeah.
Who's got time for class?
The biggest thing is, I really want to make sure that I have actual time to dedicate to these videos. I really enjoy them. I love having, my freaking cute ass pen that my husband got me and this cute little notebook that my friend got me and taking my notes. Okay, I can't flip the pages because it's not that kind of book. But anyway, the point is, I like to take my time with these videos. I don't want to rush through them. So I'm obviously going to pick a point in time when I can fully focus on my girl Lindsay here. So
do you remember where we came from?
Yes, we were in the Devonian period.
Okay.
And for some reason, I have here in big, bold letter, the word lies. Anyways, what up, Hope It's your girl Skitten, back at it again. We're here finally for more Lindsay Nicole. If you haven't already checked out the Lindsay Nicole video on my husband's channel, go do that.
It's about insects.
Yeah.
They're cool.
It's disgusting.
They'll hurt you. Somebody lick it, I'll pay you $1.
Ew. The title of this one is The Carboniferous Period, and it features Mini Minute Man. I can read.
Minute Man.
I was like Minute Man. I hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are staying safe and sanitized. I hope you have your notebooks, okay? I hope you have some hydration. Show them your water bottle, babe.
Energy drink.
Energy drinks are not hydration, but you can have one of those as well. I hope you have a snack. My husband didn't let me have a snack because we're not on a diet.
Eating in videos. Oh.
Also that part. I'm super excited to see what this video has in store for us. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
You already know what the is up.
Oh my
Do you know
God.
what fucking time it is?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's the Carboniferous period.
Okay.
I've been stoked to start researching this. And then I started researching it, and holy shit, reality slapped me in the face. As we've gone through these episodes, I'm sure it's been clear, and we all know that I kind of brush past the plant stuff. I'm not a botanist, so I give you the quick bullet points, and then move on to what I'm comfortable with.
Right.
The animals. But that was not possible with this episode,
Right.
because really, the plants in this period are the star of the show.
You just trying to do that with everybody or what? You trying to prove you know the script? Huh? What's the guy named? New York Twerk? New Jersey Twerk?
Who are you talking about?
That's the guy, the battle rapper that does that when people rap. He tries to say their punchlines.
Damn.
And he's like really good at it.
Damn.
And that's you now.
No. I don't want to be acquainted with any battle rapper.
And he goes, oh, I'm so sorry. I just saw it coming. It's a full house. How'd you not see that setup? That's you right now.
That was
Humble yourself. Okay?
That was my first thought when you said it.
Carboniferous, your main takeaway from it was probably that some of the insects were fucking massive.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot more oxygen in the atmosphere than there is today. 30% compared to today's 21%. That is because of the plants. And so, the last few weeks I've spent...
They ask you how you are, and you just...
a lot of time making sure I have a good grasp on the how and the why of that aspect. And God, I hope it makes sense when I explain it to you. So, let's just get on with it. My name is Lindsay Nicole.
Hi.
And this is the history of life on Earth. That we know of.
Hell yeah.
That we know of.
We're going to start off by getting the global conditions out of the way. So back in the Devonian, we had supercontinent Gondwana in the southern hemisphere, and then its buddy, supercontinent Euramerica, kind of situated at the equator, just above it. Well, in the Carboniferous, Gondwana was really cozying up and started moving closer and closer to LaRussia. Now you're probably thinking, wait, what the fuck happened to Euramerica? I was thinking the same thing.
Right.
Who's this new LaRussia character? For this section, the continental tectonic shit section of this series, I tend to keep the sources pretty simple, like university pages like Berkeley, and all of them just switched it up. In the Devonian, they were talking about Gondwana and Euramerica, and all of a sudden the Carboniferous was Gondwana and LaRussia. So I looked into it, and based on my understanding, it seems that Euramerica broke apart, and one of those new fragments was LaRussia. Necessary context? Probably not. You don't need to remember.
But I like
because
to
at the
know
very end of this period, all of the continents finally came together to form
Pangea.
the one and only. You know it, you love it. Super motherfucking continent Pangea.
Yes! I know that fucking one.
I'm so sorry.
So keep that in mind. Throughout the Carboniferous, the continents are getting nice and cozy
Okay,
until
I'm
at the very
following
end
along.
they
They're
form
fucking-
Pangea.
Pangea.
So once the next period comes about, the Permian period,
Human
Pangea
centipede.
is absolutely kicking.
Yeah. Attached head to ass.
Why?
Heyo.
Why?
In the hole. Attached like Legos. Suction cup.
Oh,
It's funnier if you don't laugh while you do it.
I can't take you
I'm
anywhere.
sorry.
So while these land masses were kind of slowly moving in as the backdrop of this period, the global climate was shifting pretty significantly as well. The early Carboniferous period was real swampy. That's a mourning dove. I don't know if you can hear it in the microphone.
We
Early
cannot.
Carboniferous was real swampy, wet and humid, tropical. Think of Florida on a larger scale, with creatures that seemed like Florida inhabitants as well. That I'll show you in a minute. And then as this period moved along, the climate generally got cooler and drier. Think more temperate, maybe? There were more climactic fluctuations due to glaciation at the poles. So the shift from warm and humid to cool and dry led to some pretty serious adaptation. In many groups, including in our ancestors. Cool and dry led to some pretty serious adaptations. In many groups, including in our ancestors, that I will show you in a
Okay.
minute. You might have heard the Carboniferous period be referred to as the Age of the Insects, because insects and other related groups were going absolutely nuts during this time,
Dragonflies.
with some getting to the biggest sizes the world has ever seen. That we know of. Before we get into why that happened, I want to tell you about today's very on-brand sponsor, the Ants, Underground Kingdom. Get it? Best time to get Underground Kingdom for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the time of their ancestors. So to understand why insects and other related groups got to godforsaken sizes during this period, we first have to check out what was going on with the flora. They made their home all nice and
Mini
cozy.
man.
Back in the Devonian period, the world saw the first large
not
trees
quite.
and forests that we know of. And now, in the Carboniferous, the plants are getting comfortable. They're taking shit over. The beginning of this period was real tropical, swampy. Plants were loving it. And they took on some forms that, based on fossil evidence, were absolutely sick. So, let me introduce you to a few of them. One of the most well-known and abundant trees
Palm
during
tree.
this time.
That's a palm tree. That's not a leprechaun dendron. That is a pom-pom.
Also known as the scale trees. As far as we know, they could get to over 100 feet tall, with trunks that could get to 6 feet across. I came across some sources
cool.
that said they could get to 180 feet tall, and then a couple other sources with like 130 feet or like somewhere in between that.
Okay.
So just know that's the range we're looking at
Big.
across different sources.
Very large.
The scale trees loved swamps. They grew pretty densely all over them and were one of the biggest components of these swamp forests that we know of. They were
Okay.
made up of a single trunk that became branched at the top as an adult, with long, thin leaves that covered these branches and finished off with little cones at the very tips. Little Paleozoic ornaments. Absolutely sublime. Their trunk was covered in small diamond-shaped leaf scars, which were left all over them from shedding their leaves. And those scars, in some cases, became fossilized
I
and eventually
see.
allowed us to identify them as fossils today,
That's
which is
cool.
pretty insane. And like Wadiza and some of those earlier forms in the Devonian, scale
Okay.
trees used spores to reproduce rather than seeds,
Ah.
like ferns, fungi, and algae use today.
That's what happens when I sneeze.
That's
I'm
wow.
sporing you.
Why?
What?
Disgusting.
It's a skill.
Another tree from this time that's closely related to Lepidodendron is Sigillaria. They're both lycopods, and both had those diamond-shaped scars from fallen leaves. Sigillaria also got to over 100 feet tall as well. I would kill to see one of these in person, dude. I like this one a lot.
That's
if anyone
cool.
knows
It's like
why
the two fingers from Elden Ring.
I can get my hands on a plant that looks like this, please let me know. I feel like there's got to be some sort of weird, fucked up succulent tree that kind of looks like this. you know?
Right.
I feel like all those succulent trees kind of look like prehistoric trees. I love them. All right, let's go into a group of seed plants
back.
during this time. That's right, we've got some fucking seed plants during this time. Cordaites, a genus of
Cordaites.
trees and shrub-like plants with some members that could get to, you guessed it, over 100 feet tall. That we
Holy
know.
crap.
They had more leathery, strap-shaped leaves. So
Okay.
found in, you guessed it, swamps. It was Swamp City
Yeah,
back in the day.
right.
But fossil evidence suggests they also tolerated a wider range of environments.
Okay.
The swamps, the mangroves, the floodplains, and also the upland.
You know what would
Why
be
not?
so helpful here
Huh.
is one of those little tiers, and it goes swamps, and then we have like pictures of the plants that are there.
Yeah,
Like the different tundras or whatever.
Right.
And we just show me what plants are where.
We're there. Yeah, that'd
You
be
know,
actually super helpful.
Like we do this part, then at the end, breakdown of where these things were at.
Yeah.
Because then that would help. Or at least you could put like on a map or something.
Right.
But I would rather a tier system. Like I actually visually see where these things are.
Yeah.
You know?
You name it. They were kind of up for everything, all over it. Some smaller specimens of Cordaites show evidence of aerial roots, which are exactly what they sound like, roots.
Yeah, that
exposed
girl-
in the air,
yeah.
like the roots of mangrove
Mangroves,
trees.
yeah.
And the last one on the plant list is Columites, a tall, hollow-stemmed
Calamity?
plant, closely related
Right.
to modern horsetails and kind of had a similar appearance, but much, much bigger. It had jointed hollow stems with needle-like
is
leaves that
so
came out of
cool.
Like a
branches
Christmas
from the
tree.
nodes on these stems, and seemed to have been able to reach heights of, you guessed it, 100 feet tall.
feet.
That
Yeah.
we know,
Yeah.
and lived in, you guessed it,
Swamps.
I've definitely seen a succulent tree that looks like this one at the Oregon Zoo.
Okay.
When I was there in November. They had all these little labels for all the plants they had on site, but
That's
they didn't
dope.
have one for the one plant I wanted to get a name for, and I've been thinking about it ever since. It literally, it looked like this, and I don't know
We
if it
can
was a
tell.
succulent. It kind of looked like if
We
a
can
pine
tell.
tree was a succulent. I don't know if that
Okay.
makes sense. I'm way out of my comfort zone right now. But if anybody
that's what
who's
this
been to
looks
the
like,
Oregon
so-
Zoo knows what I'm talking
Yeah.
about, please let me know, because I want one. Please tell me. Anyway,
Okay, take a quick scroll. Does anybody know? Does it come up?
Let's see.
Yeah, just take a quick scroll. I'm just interested. I don't know, it's on my mind.
An Araucaria?
Okay, that is so cool.
Yeah, that's dope.
That is so cool.
that was a very brief introduction to the plants that were alive during this time. The point
Nice.
is, plants were thriving with a capital T. The world was absolutely lush in a way it had never really seen before. So much so that their existence literally changed the concentrations of compounds in the atmosphere by
Wow.
a fuck ton,
Right.
leading to those super high oxygen concentrations. So let me quickly break down why. I promise this is important before we get to the big insects. So, we all know photosynthesis. Plants take in sunlight,
Photosynthesis.
water, and carbon dioxide to make oxygen, which is released back into
Right.
the atmosphere.
And then we breathe it.
That's a SpongeBob reference.
Okay.
Photosynthesis.
I wouldn't.
He was trying not to eat like how we were on this diet,
Uh-huh.
and like he's denying himself, and then he just starts saying photosynthesis because he's a sponge, supposed to be able to photosynthesize.
Yeah.
But he realizes he eats burgers.
Yeah.
Yeah, good episode.
And also sugar, which is stored in the plant and has all the carbon from the
Sugar.
carbon dioxide. Gian, can you pull up a chemical equation of photosynthesis? So see, all the carbon from the
Lord.
carbon dioxide.
Oh, that's super easy. Okay, we
I'm
got
not writing
6
this down.
CO2s. We got some 6H2O. We got some sunlight and some green stuff. And we got some bread plus some oxygen.
Okay.
And that equals what? What are we doing?
is in the sugar. 6 on one side, 6 on the other. This is like the only thing I got out of my chemistry classes in college. So all
Smart.
that carbon's sitting in the plants. And those
Okay.
plants are sitting in the swamp. When the plants died, they sat in these swampy conditions,
Okay.
which notoriously just don't allow materials to fully decompose. The
Right.
whole thing with
They're
swamps.
just
Also,
there
fossil
lucky.
evidence suggests that the microbes that break down lignin, which is a key substance of these
Yeah.
newly evolved plant structures, had not evolved yet. So lignin was just not being broken down. There was nothing to break it down. So these massive plants would sprout up really fast, pump a ton of oxygen into the atmosphere, pulling carbon dioxide out of it through
Yeah.
photosynthesis, die, and then just pile up, meaning the carbon wasn't being released back into the atmosphere.
Right,
so then,
right.
boom, oxygen concentrations
They're
were just
fucking
fucking
through the roof.
cruising on a highway to
Wow,
hell,
what an
about
awesome
30%
thing.
compared to today's 21%. And this was sick for a lot of insects. It allowed them to grow to much larger sizes because of the way their respiratory systems work. Oxygen gets diffused directly into the tissues, so the increased oxygen made this efficient as fuck. This wasn't the only reason why some species got super big, but it was definitely a component for some.
Excellent, excellent. You know, understanding the thought process, even though we've never heard of it before, I think is really, really important because that's the thing that people are struggling with right now. is
Yeah.
understanding processes leading to conclusions.
Right.
And they'd be like, but that's just a theory. That doesn't mean it's not important.
Right.
You understand? Like, I've heard so many arguments, you know, to me, oh, you're just believing in this theory, so on and so forth. Like,
It's
no,
a
no, no.
working theory.
Right. We're thinking about how the process works together and it's sensible.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a very important process.
And I think for people is like they feel like certain things shouldn't change. Right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, it can't
Yeah.
change. And if it changes, then it was never true in the first place. Like, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mhm.
Like, I used to hate chocolate as a kid. And as
Yeah.
an adult, I hate chocolate less.
But see, when
that
you-
doesn't mean I didn't hate chocolate.
And also, not everything was giant. Actually, most things weren't giant. There were normal-sized ancestral grasshoppers,
course, yeah.
Okay.
katydids, roaches, terrestrial scorpions
Okay,
that
good.
appeared for the first time in this period. There was a rapid diversification of flight, which, as of right now, is kind of a jarring
Dragonflies.
jump in the fossil record. record, like I talked about last time. Devonian fossils are like no flying insects, and then Carboniferous fossils are like
Flying everywhere.
a shit ton of different ways that these insects are flying. So that's just what the fossil record is right now. Evidence of metamorphosis appears here for the very first time.
Oh, okay.
And also terrestrial snails, which aren't insects and not even arthropods, but wanted to mention that, didn't know where else to put that. But let's talk about the big guys. Often when people think of the Carboniferous, they think of those big dragonflies. That's what I think of. And the big trees. One of the most well-known dragonflies from this period is Meganeura, one of the largest flying insects to ever exist that we know of. They had a 2.5-foot wingspan, which, to put in perspective, your bedroom door is probably 3 feet wide. They also have the same wingspan as a broad-winged hawk and also a small gull. In other words, this was a big-ass dragonfly. Technically a dragonfly, which is morphologically slightly different. As we all know, nature doesn't give shit to you straight. Their larger size likely meant they had a wider variety to choose from on the Paleozoic menu. Lots of the smaller insects and other invertebrates, maybe possibly some amphibians as well. Fossils of their relatives, like other giant griffin flies, suggest they must have had to live in more open habitats rather than super dense forested areas,
because obviously
their
they have
wings would have
wings.
just fucking knocked into shit all the time. Or maybe they did live in a dense forest and they were just all sorts of fucked up when they were bopping around. Who's to say, really? Another one with a similar...
You know, I was really thinking, though, like, because, like, flies don't really care. They just bump into stuff as they fly around. They don't... Why would dragonflies care anymore?
I guess you're right, yeah.
Really. Another one with a similar vibe to Meganeura is Mesotheris enormis, named such because they were, you guessed it, enormous. There have only been partial remains from a single fossil found, but it displays enough evidence to say that they had a wingspan of nearly 2 feet long. They had unusually long cerci, which are paired appendages at the end of the abdomen of insects. Some serve as sensory organs, others pinching organs, weapons, sex organs. Depends on what kind of freak the insect is. Not incest, though.
Sing it.
What?
The song.
What?
You've been obsessed with it for weeks.
What?
Is somebody gonna match my freak?
Oh, I haven't been obsessed with that for weeks.
You've been bringing it up?
I just like the video of the guy that does why he eats cheesy bread and cheese pizza. That's just my favorite video.
You've been bringing up that song for weeks, and now you haven't been obsessed with the song for weeks.
But it's mostly just the guy eating cheese pizza.
Anytime somebody says the word freak, you're like, that guy eats cheese pizza. He
That's what I'm
listens to
saying.
this song.
He's got like a big ass pizza. It's like eating the pizza.
Sex. Some serve as sensory organs, others pinching organs, weapons, sex organs. Depends on what kind of freak the insect is. Not incest, though. That's cerci, not cerci. As for Mesotheros, the purpose of their cerci is unknown at this moment in time. All right, now, just so you know, we're moving away from the insects and into their relatives within the general terrestrial arthropod group.
Right.
Fuck it. Let's do the arachnids first. I'm going to introduce you to Pulmonoscorpius, one of the largest scorpions to ever exist that we know of. The largest fossil remains so far represent an animal that could get to 2 feet and 4 inches long. You know what else is 2 feet and 4 inches long? Canada lynx.
I don't have a penis, just to be clear. That's just what I thought she was going to say. I also don't think she has a penis, but it would have been funny.
She's like 4 feet, so she had a 2-foot penis to be half her body size.
Oh, she would pass out every time.
She would die. It's a pass. There's no, you skip past passing out. It's a one and done. She would octopus herself. It would be over. One chance to mate, and it's XOXO Gossip Girl.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Canada lynx.
That's
I worked
nuts.
with a Canada lynx once, named Ramsey. He was rescued from a guy who tried to buy him as a pet, and Ramsey kept ruining his furniture and his condo, as a wild animal does.
I mean, why would he?
So Ramsey didn't like people very much, but he liked cardboard. He liked cardboard boxes. One time I made him a little cardboard box boat, called it the SS Ramsey. He really liked it.
That's
I bet
cute.
he's sitting in a cardboard box right now. Anyway, sorry, that was a little break
Lindsay.
from the Canada lynx-sized scorpion we're talking about right now. Unlike modern scorpions, which generally rely on mechanoreceptive senses for prey capture, Pulmonoscorpius seems to have relied on their eyesight much more. They had proportionally much bigger eyes than today's scorpions, which maybe makes them cuter. Like, they're kind of baby for that.
No,
but
they're
their
not.
size, dude, can't get past it.
No.
For a while, it was unclear whether they were just another sea scorpion, which we're all familiar with at this point. The Eurypterids.
Yes.
The Eurypterids are very different than regular scorpions. They actually shouldn't even be called sea scorpions because they're not the same thing. But there was confusion nonetheless. Turns out 2 specimens of Pulmonoscorpius show evidence of book lungs, which are air-breathing organs that land-dwelling arachnids tend to have. So boom. terrestrial scorpion, arachnid, not a eurypterid.
Okay.
I actually have an example that's the complete opposite of Splenonoscorpius.
Okay.
That was originally thought to be an arachnid, but turns out is a eurypterid. It's called Megarachnid. Alive during this time, it was initially thought to be the largest spider to ever exist. Actually, people still mistake it as the largest spider to ever exist. It wasn't. It was a 1.5 foot long eurypterid. The largest spider to ever exist that we know of is actually alive today. The Goliath bird eater, known to eat birds. Largest by size and weight. They're about a foot long max.
God.
And up there with them, but a little bit lighter, is the classic godforsaken huntsman from, you guessed it, Australia.
What's he gonna do with him?
It's just got the rat by the face.
But enough about them, and on to our next arthropod on our lineup.
Okay.
Hibertopterus. A sea scorpion, eurypterid, that looks like some sort of horseshoe crab.
Yeah.
And also a strange shrimp. Kind of a funny looking guy. By the looks of them, you're probably thinking they were about the same size as a horseshoe crab. Maybe a backpack-sized eurypterid. Nope. Fossil evidence suggests the largest Hibertopterus individuals could get to nearly 6 feet long. 6 feet long, dude. That's unnecessary for their shape, in my opinion. I don't mean to body shame them, but that just doesn't sit right with me. It's not scary, you know? It's just simply not right.
What do you mean that's not scary? Do you know how big 6 feet is? It would be the size of our desk. It would be this size. It would eat us alive, even if it doesn't eat people.
I could ride it.
You could ride it. Now we're back on the cool side. Thanks for riding me back.
You know how to like make a saddle, don't you?
Yeah, no, that's leather working. Never done it.
Damn.
Yeah.
You could figure it out,
Completely
though.
different profession. Not even close. No.
Farmers know how to make saddles.
Absolutely
When
not.
I read Little House on the Prairie, I'm pretty sure.
That's how you know it was fiction. You know how vastly different leather working is from woodworking? It's like, yeah.
Like, I don't know about that. Their body shape with no context doesn't scream large to me, but maybe I'm just ignorant. Here's something that'll probably freak you out a bit. Hibertopterus was a sea scorpion. Yes, a eurypterid. But evidence of trackways that could only belong to them suggest that they spent at least some time on land. I don't like the idea of that body shape, that size, walking around on land.
Walking around against people.
That just doesn't sit right. I'm sure you agree. This 6 feet long on land? Yeah, no thanks. But the last one on our giant arthropods list kind of blows them out of the water on that front. It's probably the arthropod you've been waiting for, Arthropleura.
Yeah,
massive,
it is.
8 foot long arthropod that holds the record.
We knew
for
that,
the largest
though.
terrestrial invertebrate to ever exist.
That's how you know.
So
It
here's
wouldn't
the
survive.
deal. Arthropleura is often considered a millipede. Makes sense, you know. The massive millipede, the biggest fucking millipede. I've probably said that. But they weren't technically millipedes. Just millipede-like myriapods, which is the group millipedes belong to. So, millipede by association. Remember, the millipede form has been very successful. Don't you fucking forget. Do you remember the earliest animal on land that we have direct fossil evidence of? Millipede form. In today's video, Arthropleura. And in modern times, we have millipedes that produce their own cyanide as a weapon. And millipedes in Australia actually have over 1,000 legs. Because, of course, they would in Australia. Back to the millipede by association we're talking about today. The big one. How exactly they were able to get to this size is definitely due to a lot of factors. Diet being a big one. They likely needed lots of ultra-nutritious plant matter, and they might have even fed on other animals on land at the time, which wouldn't have necessarily been difficult for them considering they were some of the largest animals on the planet.
Right, they're huge.
Do you think they had better eyesight?
Ooh.
Or do they still just run around and randomly just eat things?
Blindly.
They're just like running around and just like chomping on whatever they can find.
I would hope that back then they could see and then just gradually evolve to not need to see.
How would they do that?
I don't know.
How would they lose the ability to see?
How would they regress? I don't know.
That means they were big, blind, dumb hunters.
Oh, God.
Just venoming whatever was around.
Walking the planet at the time. That we know of. Even bigger than many terrestrial tetrapods.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the tetrapods. So last time in the Devonian, vertebrates finally made it to land. It was the end of the no-bone zone. No-bone zone! And they did not waste any time getting established in the Carboniferous. Along with being considered the age of the insects, the Carboniferous is also known as the age of the amphibians. So let's go over what they were up to now. Starting off with the temnospondyls, a group that was fucking all over the place. They're considered proto-amphibians, so not true amphibians, and maybe potentially the ancestors to modern amphibians. And they were very much taking advantage of the newly established land. Lots to see. Some species were smaller, like centimeters long, and the largest could get to almost 10 feet long. Some seem to live their lives almost fully or... Sometimes you write something in the script that sounds like you'll be able to say it right when you talk it, but then you can't. Some seem to have lived their lives almost fully or fully in the water.
All right, let's hear it.
What?
The part of the script.
Some seem to have lived their lives almost fully or fully in the water.
Shut up. Just stop talking. Go back to
Others
what
seem
you're
to be
doing.
fully down with the land, but all of them, as you would expect from...
How did you even memorize it so quickly? Are you okay?
Yeah.
All right. That's why your eyes are see-through. Mask it.
While others seem to be fully down with the land, but all of them, as you would expect from proto-amphibians, still relied on water to lay their eggs in. Moving on to a specimen in a different category. The most well-known amphibian from the Carboniferous
We saw a
is
fossil of that
Diplodocus.
thing.
Obviously,
yeah.
its boomerang head is a crowd pleaser. There are a few different species of a few different sizes, with the largest getting to about 3 feet long. They
That's
seem
not
to
so
have
bad.
been more on the aquatic side of the amphibian spectrum, where they likely fed on small, aquatic creatures via ambush attacks. What exactly their boomerang head was used for is
saw
still
that.
uncertain. Lots of different ideas have been thrown out there, from defense, hydrodynamics, mating displays, or possibly somehow helping to funnel prey into their mouth. Exploring each of these possibilities is not really what I'm interested in at
Right.
the moment, though, because
Okay.
something else happened during the Carboniferous that would change the tetrapod course forever. What
What?
is a trait
Forever.
that the tetrapods we've gone over don't have? That would have been
What is it? A trait they have that we haven't gone over. Jaws.
Penises.
All right.
necessary for the development of the
All right.
lineage as we know it today. If you want to, pause the video. Try to
We
take a
did.
second to
We-
guess what I'm
we
about
tried.
to say.
She
You
failed!
don't have to. Can't make you do anything. Actually, I'm going to grab an example of what I'm talking
Appendages.
Okay, thank you for giving me something else. Good
Like-
Lord almighty.
Like toes and fingers.
And penises.
about, so you got to wait and think about it anyway. I'll be right back. I'm
All
gonna
right,
be
we
back.
already did it. We were ahead of the curve.
An egg. Specifically,
Ah.
an amniotic egg. As you can see, this egg is very different than the eggs in the chia pudding that we talked about in the frog video.
Disgusting.
And also very different than fish eggs or other eggs.
Delicious.
In marine environments. This one's unfertilized because I got it from Trader Joe's, so it's really just for the visual aspect, but it will be useful nonetheless.
Smash it.
I heard a lady call it TJ's, and I thought of you when she did it.
Yeah.
You're like one step away from that. But also smash it. You think she could crush it in her hand?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, do like that girl did.
Ooh, on the bicep.
Yeah.
I want to try that.
So the classic fish egg or amphibian egg or any other egg is typically laid in water. They rely on the surrounding aquatic environment for the exchange of gases, nutrients, hydration, etc. The amniotic egg, on the other hand, has all that shit wrapped up inside of it.
And then
It
you
has
eat it.
everything an embryo will need to develop. No need
Yep.
to be attached to a body of water. The shell does a decent job protecting the embryo from the elements, so they can be independent bitches. I'm sure this is what the invention of the burrito felt like. Now I can take everything I want to eat and wrap it up in a protected shell and eat it wherever I want, go wherever I want with the burrito. No need for a fork, no need for a bowl. Got everything I need right here. And that's
Burrito
exactly
also
what
sounds
this amniotic egg allowed these newly evolved amniotes to do. Remember that during the
got it.
Carboniferous, the global climate was going from wet and humid to cool and dry. Being able to lay your eggs away from a body of water opens up a huge variety of environments.
Right.
A step that was definitely necessary for the survival of
How
these
cute.
tetrapods. On top of this adaptation, early amniotes also evolved water-resistant skin to prevent desiccation and diversified to shift
That was
from
gonna be
bits
my- that was
of
gonna be my
the
next
of
go-
the
my
lineages
next
that would
guess.
lead to reptiles, birds,
Yeah.
even mammals.
Most of
who
these
obviously would
scales.
eventually keep the embryos inside the body. But we'll get to that in a few episodes. All right, just leave it. Just leave it right there.
Smash it.
Okay. It might seem like the path to these lineages that we're so familiar with today seems like a ways off still, but that
Right.
is not the case. Because not
Damn.
only did amniotes first evolve in the Carboniferous that we know of, they also seem to have their first major split here into synapsids and sauropsids.
Okay.
Synapsids were the ancestors to mammals, and sauropsids were the ancestors to reptiles.
Sauropsids.
Sids versus sauropsids.
And the evidence of this is in the bones, specifically the skull.
Bones.
Let's start with the synapsids, our ancestors. Behind the orbit or eye socket of all synapsids is a single opening called the temporal fenestra. It's thought to have allowed for the expansion of jaw muscles and opened up the ability to process a variety
That's
of
what I'm
foods.
talking
And now
about,
all
jaws.
mammals today have a single temporal fenestra.
All right, I
Each organ,
nailed this
with a
one.
couple exceptions, I'm sure, since nature never gives shit to you straight. But the whole synapsid lineage that led to mammals can be traced using this single pair of temporal fenestra
Yeah.
behind the
Okay.
pair of eye sockets, which is fucking sick,
Yeah.
in my opinion. One of the earliest synapsids that we know of is called Archaeothyres. It was about
Yeah.
20 inches long and had a sharp pair of enlarged canines, so most likely a carnivore. I know it kind of looks more like an ancestor to a lizard
Yeah.
other than a mammal, which is definitely due to that sprawling stance. That's like the OG trait for amniotes. This would eventually change to the legs underneath the body situation that we're more familiar with in mammals today. Another early synapsid from the Carboniferous, I think you're gonna like this one, is a Daphosaurus.
Yeah, we saw that one
of the
too,
oldest
remember?
vertebrate terrestrial herbivores that we know of, and notable for the massive sail it had on its back, which might have been used as an early form of thermal regulation, maintaining the internal body temperature.
Sense, yeah.
That's what mammals do today, so that's pretty cool. Their form is probably a more familiar one to you if you've heard of their relative, Dimetrodon, came a little bit later. We're going to cover them in the next period. I
Maybe that's the one.
I love
that's
a sail. But throughout time, Hollywood has kind of misrepresented them to be a dinosaur. Classic Hollywood shenanigans. Nope. These were synapsids in the group that gave rise to the mammals, including us, which is kind of nuts. This is in our distant lineage, rather than in the lineage with the dinosaurs.
Right.
Okay, so what about the sauropsids? The ones that would give rise to the reptiles. What the fuck did they have going on? Well, like the synapsids, the key to the sauropsids was in the skull as well. The sauropsids had two different forms. The diapsids, which had two temporal fenestra behind the eye, and the anapsids, which had none.
Yeah.
So, synapsids, one hole. Sauropsids, two holes, or no holes. The sauropsids have seen a shit ton of successful lineages. The dinosaurs, the pterosaurs, crocodilians, birds, I could go on. This is one hell of a group. So let me introduce you to some of its earliest representatives. First off, Hylonomus, one of the earliest anapsids that we know of. So they had no holes. They're about 8 inches long and kind of looks like lizards. They also had small, sharp teeth, which indicate a diet of insects that were abundant at this time. And next, Patrolicosaurus, considered the oldest diapsid that we know of. Another one that looked like a lizard, but this time with two holes behind the orbit. So we went over the age of the insects, got to the age of amphibians, and you might feel overwhelmed to find out that the Carboniferous is known as the age of another thing. Yeah, the sharks. The golden age of the sharks. Actually, more so shark relatives.
Wow, this really has like everything.
Yeah, there's so much going on.
It went from like literally only like 1 or 2 changes, and just a lot of it in great detail, to like actually a ton of things happening all at one time.
All at the same time.
Again, I'm telling you guys, things are about to start getting complicated. If you didn't follow along at the beginning and understand the flow, this shit's going to be lost.
But that also tracks with her saying like, oh, there's like this huge jump in the fossil record from like no flying things to fucking flying things, you know, like there's just so much going on. So I just want to make sure sauropsids, what was it? Diapsids and anapsids.
Is the golden age of the wider group.
Write down sharks.
One thing I've noticed science loves to do is be very generic when talking about what a shark is, like too generic, while simultaneously being very technical and being very exclusive of what a shark technically is. Let's do a little recap so you know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Okay.
So, back in the Silurian, the fish were going nuts.
Yep.
Chondrichthyes, the cartilaginous fish, first time popping up in existence.
Yep.
At least that we know of. Then they diversified into groups like acanthodians, the spiny sharks, which were not true sharks, but we still call sharks. And I forgot to tell you, in the last period, in the Devonian, a big shark thing happened, and I forgot to tell you. Two other major groups of chondrichthyans appeared for the first time in the fossil record. The holocephalans, also known as the ratfish, which have representatives today like chimeras and other ratfish. That's one. The other new group is the elasmobranchs, which includes sharks, skates, rays, sawfish,
so
and their
they've been
earliest
around.
representatives that we know of came from right about the middle of the Devonian. Phoebotus is the earliest elasmobranch, and Melanotus is the earliest holocephalan that we know of. Whoops. Sorry, I forgot about him last time. I know you bitches love sharks, so that's my bad. But anyway, now the Carboniferous is the golden age of the sharks. So allow me to introduce you to some of these golden age species. Starting off with Dracopristis, an elasmobranch. Wow,
that's cool.
It was first discovered in New Mexico in 2015. An insanely well-preserved fossil specimen. It had a nearly complete skeleton, a body outline, and even soft tissue impressions, which painted quite the picture of what this species looked like hundreds of millions of years ago. Dracopristis was a nearly 7-foot-long shark, had 12 rows of teeth, sitting in extremely powerful jaws, and had a pair of spines on its back that were each over 2 feet long. They just so happened to look a bit reptilian, even though they obviously weren't. It definitely reminded the researchers of the reptilian form. So at the time of its discovery, they nicknamed it the Godzilla shark. They didn't know if it was a new species or if it belonged to a different species. Well, they figured it out. They were like, fuck it, looks like Godzilla. Let's call it Godzilla. In 2021, it was finally identified as its own new species and given the scientific name Dracopristis, which translates to dragon shark. So kind of the same vibe. It seems as though their large reptilian spines were used as defense against predators or other large sharks alive at the time. And despite their dragon or Godzilla-like appearance, they didn't seem to function as an apex predator based on their fossil characteristics. Their jaws suggest a lifestyle of not bottom feeding, but feeding on the bottom of lagoons, eating small vertebrates and crustaceans.
Okay.
Like a chump. All right, moving on to
Like
the
a chump.
holocephalids. You're gonna recognize the next two if you watch my video on the fucked up prehistoric sharks. This was the time of the fucked up prehistoric sharks. First up, Adestus.
I've
Not
seen him
asbestos,
before.
Adestus. Also
Oh my
known
God.
as a scissor tooth
He looked
shark,
like a
due to
what?
the arrangement of their tooth whorls that kind of
He's
looks like a pair of
struggling.
godforsaken scissors, like Helicoprions buzzsaw jaw. The two of them. By the way, Helicoprion technically did first appear in the Carboniferous, but it was their time to shine in the Permian, so gonna hold off on them until then. As you
Okay.
would probably guess, scientists initially speculated that Adestus used their scissor tooth whorls like scissors, slicing prey.
just
right in
cutting
half.
them
But new
up.
studies with more advanced technology tell a different story. It's the same situation as Platybelodon's shovel map.
Right.
Just because a part of an animal looks like a man-made object does not
mean that's how it
that it was
functions.
used like that man-made object. No. Adestus seems to have used its tooth whorls to slash prey up and down, or snatch and slice, then pull the prey into its mouth using its lower jaw whorl. Regardless, it was
Wait, what's the difference? I don't get it.
So I think what she's saying is that rather than them like cutting it up, they were just snatching it.
penis. And the size of their tooth whorls suggests that they could get to over 20 feet long, which is just
what
woof.
is
Alright, the next
for
one is
the-
actually pretty
for
cute.
what?
Stethecanthus. A
Yeah,
smaller
I've seen him.
ratfish that could get to 2.5 feet long and is known
He
for
was
the
little.
ironing board dorsal fin. The technical term for this ironing board dorsal fin is the spine brush complex. Brush, referring to a layer of placoid scales they had on the top of their dorsal fin and also
Okay.
on the top of their head, like a little toupee. The purpose of this complex? Uncertain, but the possibilities are deviant.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm gonna leave you on a cliffhanger. If you want to find out what those possibilities are, check
Yep.
out this video on fucked up
Nice.
prehistoric sharks.
Yeah,
Available
okay.
on my channel. Linked above and also in the description. Yep, you gotta engage with my content. Sorry. I don't make the rules. And also because I want to introduce you to a couple little guys that I haven't introduced you to before.
Little
Like
guys!
this one. Falcatus, another very small
Awesome.
holocephalin that got to about
Look
10
at
to
him.
12
He's got a
inches long.
shotgun
They also
on
had a
his head.
very strange dorsal situation, a little spine growing off the top
Yeah.
of its head in the forwards direction.
Little
Scientists
gun.
think this was likely some sort of display feature that possibly played a role in mating, and their big-ass, cute-ass eyes suggest they were adapted
Ginormous.
to deeper water hunting, maybe
Oh.
like my son. And another one,
Oh,
Iniopera,
God.
very cute, another holocephalin. That's all I have to say about them. So, next. Don't think I forgot about the trilobites.
I love the
I don't
trilobites.
have much news. In the Carboniferous, they were kind of starting to become less relevant. That's all there is to it. They were the extras in the feature film. Now let's
Keep 'em
move on to
relevant.
some more main characters.
Give him a starring role.
Absolutely.
Give him
They-
some lines.
They deserve it.
He's on the end credits, just like rolling around, like.
We want them to be like, what's his name? Josh Hartnett. We need to come back.
Who the fuck is Josh Hart?
He was in, oh my God, what's that movie?
Mhm.
Anyway, he was in this movie that
Mhm.
you showed me.
Mhm.
And he was real young, had a real
Gladiator.
pretty face. No, not Gladiator. Here, look him up real quick. Okay, this is what he looked like now. But what did he look like when he was younger?
He's in Oppenheimer. Never seen
Is he
it.
really?
Never seen it.
This kid. This guy.
Oh, on that old movie with the killers.
Yeah. I don't remember what movie you had me watch.
Yeah,
that
this
he
is
was
what
in.
it's about. The killers. They go around the city killing people.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Awesome.
so
I know who
he's-
that is.
But he's having a comeback right now.
Is he
So,
really?
yeah.
Welcome back.
So
Hope you
that's-
didn't diddly nobody. All right, here we go.
Strange specimens I know you've been waiting for. As we have already seen from the
Okay.
numerous species I've introduced you to from
Specimens.
this period, things were just generally strange as fuck.
Right.
So strange that they made up their own categories, rather than just another bullet point in the strange specimens list.
I'm
so
gonna
that
do
means
my own
the
thing.
ones I have left are just freaks.
Emo
Absolute
teenagers.
misfits. Let's start off with the most famous Carboniferous misfit, the one that was actually the topic of my first YouTube
What?
video ever, the Tully monster.
What?
Scientists don't know what it is. They don't even know vertebrate or invertebrate. Do you know how fucking weird you have to be? Where scientists are absolutely stumped on whether or not you have a backbone? That is
What?
all sorts of fucked up weird. So let's talk about what they got going on. They had a
Okay.
trunk-like snout with a claw at the end.
Uh-huh.
That's their mouth.
What?
2 rows of teeth inside of it. They also had eyes on stalks that
That's the
extend
eyes?
sideways. A combination of traits not even remotely seen on any other animal.
What?
Which has led to a decades-long debate on what the Tully monster is in the most generic sense. Vertebrate or invertebrate? What is the Tully monster? The conversation started on the invertebrate side, as you would guess. None of the thousands of fossils found showed evidence of a backbone, and it stayed this way for a while. But then, in 2016, different research teams went off, using different kinds of technologies like synchrotron, elemental mapping, fucking lasers and shit. One team found evidence of a notochord, vertebrate
Right,
trait.
which we talked about
A
before.
vertebrate trait. So
Yeah.
maybe a jawless fish. Another team found melanosomes in the tully's eyes, which is another vertebrate thing, so another point for the vertebrate. But another team suggested the eyes were simpler structures called cup eyes that are found in certain invertebrates. A few years later, there was a test on the zinc to copper ratio in the eyes, which suggested invertebrate. But then a team using lasers found keratin, which is a vertebrate thing. So long story short, nothing is settled.
That's right, folks.
I learned nothing, but I did learn different ways we use to identify invertebrates from non-invertebrates.
Yeah.
And then I learned that they can sometimes be
Wrong.
useless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is still hot. Nobody knows what the fuck it is. The other misfit on this list kind of has the same situation, called typhlosis, also known as the alien goldfish.
That's cool.
They were very
That's
small,
really cool.
about 3.5 inches long.
old
And like the
blob.
Tully monster, typhlosis could be a vertebrate. It could be an invertebrate. They had no fins, other than a little blade-like looking thing on their end, seemingly no backbone, no eyes, no shell, no anus.
What?
Yes, you heard me right. Only one hole for everything. This is nothing new in the animal kingdom. There are plenty of beings with only one opening. Jellyfish, notoriously, and other cnidarians like corals
jellyfish.
and sea anemones. Planarians, dude, look at a diagram of a planarian.
Right.
Look at where their mouth is. Anyway, it sounds crazy, but it's not really crazy in the animal kingdom. So with all these qualities combined, scientists were like, what the fuck is this?
What are you?
They took a closer look in 2022. They saw what appeared to be some sort of toothy structure in the creature's fossilized gut, similar in appearance to the molluscan radula, which is like if you had a razor for a tongue that you shot out
I've heard
before
of
your
that.
food even hit your mouth so that it's all cut up and shit. That's
Yeah.
what a lot of mollusks are up to. Now, it might have been what typhlosis was up to as well, maybe a mollusk, but there's a lot more research that has to be done. So I want to go back to what I talked about with the plants at the beginning of the video. Remember,
Please.
the oxygen concentrations were so high because the amount of plant material that sucked up all the carbon dioxide, with very few ways for that carbon to decompose and get sent back into the atmosphere. This
Right.
was not only significant for life alive at this time, but also huge for humans alive today because of what this plant material turned into over millions of years. To explain this more, I decided to bring on a really good friend
This
of
is a
mine
good
who
one.
knows more about coal than anyone else I know. The one and
Yeah.
only Milo from Mini Minuteman. There's a good chance you were
Minuteman.
introduced to me through my collaboration with him on his channel back in 2022, before I even started making long-form content. He got me in touch with
Nope, we found you organically.
Well,
We're better than everyone.
well, I guess now we have another video to watch.
his editor, Gian, who's down to help me get started and has been editing for me ever since. And so
Nice.
I owe my introduction to YouTube to him. I genuinely don't know where I'd be
Super
without his
cool.
help and without Gian because he does an unbelievable job bringing these videos to life. So I was stoked that I was able to track down Milo for this video.
That's
He's been
dope.
traveling all over the world and just so happened to land in the perfect place at the perfect time for this collaboration. So without further ado, here is Mini Minuteman.
Hello.
Whoa, who's this guy? This doesn't look like Lindsay. Howdy, friends. My name's Milo Rossi. I am a science communicator here on YouTube specializing in archaeology.
You look like a
This is what I get for not charging my lav mic. The bird ambient noise is nice, the truck's compression braking aren't. And the reason I am in Lindsay's video today is because I am standing on top of the remains of these Carboniferous swamps. Today I am in Tamaqua, Pennsylvania, located in the lower northeastern region of the state. And while I'm sure Lindsay is doing an incredible job telling you about the paleo environment of these unbelievable forests, I want to quickly whiz you about 330 million years into the future to tell you how these ancient forests played a very important role for everyone's favorite species of great ape. The immense, highly productive forests of the Carboniferous period would drop all of their natural debris on the ground, and year after year this would... Wow, they just don't let me talk about peat bogs anymore. And year after year, all of this natural material would build up to create a substance known as peat. Now, extrapolate that out for the hundreds of thousands of years that these forests existed, and you end up with some of the largest peat bogs that the world has ever seen.
Right.
Time goes on, the Carboniferous forests come and go, but the peat bogs remain. They get covered by debris, continents collide with one another, and are ripped apart. And over hundreds of millions of years of geologic
Nice
heat
time
and
lapse.
pressure, the enormous peat bogs are transformed into the dense, black, highly flammable, carbon-rich material that we all know and love as coal. In fact, it is the coal deposits left behind by the Carboniferous coal forests that give the Carboniferous period its name.
Yeah.
Come a little bit closer, I'm all alone.
Yeah, okay, that's almost professional. We need to talk about coal. There are three different types of coal: lignite, subbituminous, and bituminous.
Subbituminous.
Each type of coal being categorized by its carbon percentage, which dictates how well it burns. The lowest tier, the F tier coal, is lignite. It's the least developed of the coals, only really a step away from peat, and has a carbon percentage between 25 and 35%. A little bit above that, we have the mid coal, which is the subbituminous coal. It's a little bit more developed than the lignite and has a carbon percentage of about 35 to 45%.
Okay.
And then above that, we have the most common type of coal, the A-tier coal, which is called, as you won't be surprised, bituminous coal. It burns hotter and longer than the other two with a carbon percentage between 45 and 85%.
God damn.
And both bituminous and subbituminous coal each made up 45% of the coal mined in the United States.
I don't know how, maybe it's something that I learned before and had forgotten, that peat turned into coal.
Right.
I've obviously heard of like peat and peat bogs and stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
You know, but I guess I just forgot or never knew that peat became coal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's in 2022, making these two some of the most widely harvested and most common in the world. But I lied. There's actually not 3 types of coal, because above these 3 very common ones, there is one type of coal that is incredibly rare, but changed the face of our planet.
Coal.
It is a name that has become synonymous with the Industrial Revolution and is responsible for putting northeastern Pennsylvania on the map as a major manufacturing hub. That is, of course, anthracite coal.
Ah.
Oh, man, I'm actually kind of glad I'm using a shotgun mic because the train whistle in the back could not be more
that was
perfectly
actually
timed.
awesome.
The god-tier coal, known as anthracite, is between 85 and 97% pure carbon, and it is one of the most energy-rich raw materials we have ever discovered on our planet. However, it is incredibly rare, making up only 1% of the coal mined in the entirety of the United States of America. 100% of the anthracite coal mined in the United States in 2022 came from right here in northeastern Pennsylvania, being the largest and almost only anthracite coal field in the United States and one of the largest in the entire world. It's shiny, brittle, and can burn at temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Damn.
So why is it that not all coal is created equal? What is the magic ingredient that turns bituminous coal into the god-tier anthracite coal? Well, just like pretty much every geologic process, it is a lucky combination of heat and pressure.
Right.
If you look at this region of Pennsylvania from the air, you can see that the land almost looks folded. This is called the Valley and Ridge Province of the Appalachian Mountains. It is a series of anticlines and synclines, geologic terms for folds in the Earth's crust. Over time, the different stones that these folds are made out of have weathered, creating these unusual cross-sections of the enormous folds created by the collision of the African continent and the North American continent. This mountain-building event was known as the Alleghanian orogeny and occurred between 320 and 250 million years ago. This tectonic collision provided the necessary pressure to turn this peat into coal. But here in northeastern Pennsylvania, the pressure was just a little bit harder and had the added ingredient of the regions nearby carrying volcanic activity. This added an immense amount of swelling up from Earth's core into the mix of the already massive collision of continents.
Answering the next question of why can't we just make more? Well, can you make volcanoes?
And that's literally like what I was thinking about, like when we talk about that, you know, coal is not a renewable resource, it's a finite resource. I never really understood what that meant. You know, I'd never really obviously done a deep dive into any of this, and you know, also my parents didn't believe that the earth was that old. So
volcanoes, immense amount of pressure, moving continents. That's a lot to wrap your head around when you have a stone tablet to chisel it all in. So.
Because of this, the conditions on this part of the Earth's surface were just right to transform the colossal peat bogs from the Carboniferous forests into the dense, black, energy-rich anthracite coal. Now, the reason that I'm here in Tamaqua today is because Tamaqua is still home to an immense amount of coal mining. Coal was noted by colonizers in these mountains as early as the 1690s, but it wouldn't be until the early to mid-1800s that the resource was being fully exploited. And the anthracite coal from northeastern Pennsylvania literally changed the world. As the budding United States entered the Industrial Revolution, it was the coal from the very mountains that I sit on right now that fueled the fires. They powered factories, built railroads, and won the Civil War. The job opportunities that this massive deposit of anthracite coal created, both in mining and manufacturing, saw a massive influx of immigrants into the United States, including my ancestors who emigrated to the United States from Italy in the early 1900s. They, like many other immigrant families, worked in the anthracite coal mines, backbreaking labor done in pursuit of the American dream. The overgrown coal tailing pile behind me is a relic of this era, a time when northeastern Pennsylvania became the generator for the blossoming United States, allowing it to become the economic and industrial hub that powered it through the Industrial Revolution. Today, much of the anthracite coal in northeastern Pennsylvania has been vastly depleted, with events like the Knox mine disaster bringing an end to an era, with small pockets still mined, but humanity has begun to transition away from it as a resource in hopes of finding things that are more environmentally friendly and less destructive. But all of that is to say that we have one major thing to thank for our rise to a global superpower, and that is ancient primordial swamps that existed 330 million years ago.
Holy
well,
shit.
that's all I have to say, and there's a pickup game starting over here. So thank you, Lindsay, for having me on again. My name is Milo Rossi. Feel free to check out my channel at Minuteman on YouTube, or you can type in Milo Rossi. You'll find me. Thanks again, Lindsay, and keep doing what you're doing. See you guys later.
So as you can probably guess from a process that was altering the environment to an atmospheric level, shit was not going to end well. While this period didn't end with a major extinction, there was a minor one near the end of this time. It's called the Carboniferous rainforest collapse. It happened about 305 million years ago. The gradual shift to cooler and drier climates meant that species had to adapt, otherwise they were going to get booted. This might have been due to the higher oxygen concentrations kind of having a reverse greenhouse effect, but I'm going to be honest, dude, the sources that I found for this collapse were kind of hard for me to get a good grasp on for some reason. Also, the formation of Pangea meant that all those coastal ecosystems at the merging points got squished out of existence, which I don't think is necessarily linked to the Carboniferous rainforest collapse, but that definitely happened and is worth mentioning. Long story short, the shift in climate led to the need for species to come equipped with new adaptations. But the end of the next period was going to be the biggest test of all time.
There's no big end to this then.
Yeah, it just kind of peters out a little bit. What?
I'm glad you're a finite resource. Peters.
Oh no, that wasn't a Pete Bong joke. That was
Sure it wasn't.
It wasn't.
Yeah, well,
it wasn't.
You'll burn out sooner or later.
Oh God.
I don't know if this is gonna come across how long we shot this video for. We started and stopped a couple of times.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So I don't have a good grasp of a quiz at the end of this one.
Yeah.
I had some really good questions, mostly about that little thing with the little mouth, little tubey mouth and like the sideways eyes.
I didn't take notes on him. I got like super engaged with the video, and so I didn't take notes.
Okay. It was the golden age of the what?
Sharks.
Sharks.
Plants,
that's an easy one.
And insects.
Yeah.
It was all tree of them.
And then we have two different types of reptiles. Nice.
That was an accident.
We got two different types of reptiles. No notes. It's a quiz.
Hold on.
Close
it's an open note quiz.
Close your notes.
Sauropsids and synopsids.
Close enough.
Was it right? No, I was right.
And then they one had, which is the one with one holes or
anapsids.
Or no holes.
Yeah. You're a hole.
Wow. What a thing. What a thing to say. All right, I'll see you guys around. Thanks for having me over here.
Thanks for coming, babe.
Sure.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave your reaction requests and recommendations down in the comments below. And other than that, peace out, Hope Biscuits. It's Skittin' Lit.